Guys, it's been scorching. It's absolutely been uncomfortably hot. Um, I'm doing a podcast in the middle of the day. It hasn't happened for a while. But the temperatures are just... Everyone asks me, I tell everyone that I can't wait for winter. And everyone's like, oh, well, you only want winter because of the hunting season. And no, that's not... Well, that's part of it. But I'm just not a heat kind of guy. It's terrible outside. Anyway, guys, welcome back to another episode of the PH Journals podcast. This week's podcast is a bit of an interesting one for me because I think it's a topic of the more I've spoken about, the more I get comfortable about talking about it, which I hope that makes sense. But without giving too much away, here it is. So guys, I've always valued my podcasting career as something that I would like to always add value to whatever I podcast about, whether it's having guests on, doing solo episodes, which is majority of my podcast. But one that I've received a lot of credit for is how I've broken down the tipping scenario in South Africa and Africa alike. So I've done 2 or 3 of these episodes in the past. The landscape's changed. It has changed and it's continuously changing now, especially with the rand-dollar exchange rate. The way the game prices are operating financially, professional hunters, what are the implications for professional hunters out there? It's becoming a more of a difficult circle to try and navigate, if that makes sense. So this week's episode is all about tipping and tipping correctly and how the interest rate from the US dollar, the weaker US dollar to the rand has a massive impact on the industry as a whole. So there's 2 aspects, or there's 2 reasons why I decided to do these sort of podcasts, these tipping podcasts. Number one is to take the uncomfortable conversation away at camp, because let me just say this straight off the bat. There's nothing easy about tipping situations from professional hunters, outfitters, and clients. From the professional hunter side of things, the guys get kind of cornered and they'll be like, oh, well, what's a good tip? What's a good gratitude tip to leave behind? And the PHs kind of backtrack and they're not quite sure what to say. They feel like they shouldn't ask or shouldn't tell you what sort of figure that you should be looking at. And then the clients are kind of like awkwardly asking. The outfitter doesn't want to say too much because he rather wants you to spend the money with him, and it's just like this weird circle. The outfitter part, it's not for all outfitters. It's just a story on what it is. So yeah, I've always found the tipping conversation a very difficult one to have with clients, and I personally don't like it. I don't enjoy answering those sort of questions. So now having done the podcast, it's just so lacquer just to send them a link to the podcast and say, well, go and check this podcast out. If it speaks to you is not the right word, but if you can relate to it, well then sure, by all means use it as a guidance. So guys, please, this is just purely my point of view of the whole hunting industry as a whole as far as tipping is concerned, but also it is what I've experienced out there. So I might not be 100% correct, but I'm sure this leaves you with a pretty good guideline on what you can use on your upcoming safari, especially if you're a first timer. I know things get a little bit awkward out there, and the unforeseen tipping scenarios do tend to spring up on you. So this is also just a nice way to say, well, hang on guys, this is kind of protocol now, and maybe we need to go along with it. The one thing I am a little bit frustrated about tipping is that because it's become such a massive part of the hunting industry, it's become an avenue of income that a lot of people actually rely on, and especially like the folks like trackers, lodge staff. You lose good people along the way because tips aren't sufficient enough. And I mean, I'm saying that with the utmost respect, because a tip is not a given, but sometimes those individuals just don't understand that. So if the tips aren't great with you as a professional hunter, they jump ship and they head out. And I've seen it happen a number of times. And it's sad, but also you got to understand from that point of view. Cool, guys. So I've got my little iPad over here. I've broken it down into what I think are some of the most important topics to discuss around tipping. And we take it from there. So first things first is why tipping matters in the safari industry. So like mentioned, for majority of people that get tipped, it is one of, if not the main source of income. And I need to say that again. It is one of, if not the most important part of the income. Because, like I said, people have started relying on them more than what they did in the past. Now, like I mentioned, tipping is not a given. You don't have to tip anyone. Tipping was a culture that was inherited by the American clientele. And not a bad inheritance. It's not a bad habit that we inherited. It's actually quite a good one. Like I said, it brings sustainable incomes to a lot of households. But we need to understand that in our South African culture, literally as far as hospitality is concerned, we do tip, but we don't tip like the Americans do. And it's very important to understand that this was never always part of the culture in South Africa. It has slowly crept in and has slowly become now a force within the hunting industry. So, yeah, we've got some interesting things. So, like I said, tipping has become a main form of income for many, many households. There are so many people behind the scenes that when are tipped do tend to pull finger a little bit. People want to impress. South Africans are just some of the most unique individuals you would ever meet, from the Xhosas to the Zulus to the Tshwanens, the English professional hunters or the English lodge staff, the Zimbabwean guys that you meet, the Afrikaners, everyone. We've just got such a unique culture embedded within all of us. But the one thing I think for majority of us that we can say easily is that as South Africans, we strive at nothing to make sure that the people coming out to our beautiful country would leave with a lasting impression. And the only way we can do that is by giving our best service we possibly can. So it is nice to have a little bit of gratitude at the end of a safari from people you have built relationships with, because it just helps you kickstart that gees and that vibe going forward for the next group of hunters to come in. So yeah, like I mentioned, guys, he has a good tipping culture, motivates staff, sustains rural livelihoods, and elevates the overall safari experience. Whether you like it or not, that is 100% true. It elevates the overall safari experience. You tip well, your return safaris, generally those people are going to treat you like royalty. I think one of the most important points out of understanding where tipping comes from is you are not tipping a company, you are tipping individuals for who they are and what they've done. This might be a little bit controversial, yeah. But when you are, oftentimes outfitters will tell you, let's pull tips. Oftentimes you would ask to leave the tips on a card machine for the professional hunter and all that sort of stuff. Guys, just go out of your way to make sure that you highlight what tips go where and who are they for. I think that's so important, because I think a lot of the time I've heard some horrific stories within the hunting industry of outfitters pocketing tips, only paying over certain percentages, professional hunters not getting any tips. or being robbed out of their tips, whatever it may be. The tracker is never receiving anything. So for me, I think we need to tread that water very, very lightly, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So, who should be tipped? Number one is your professional hunter. Number two is your tracker. The reason why I say professional hunter is your number one is because you are with your professional hunter throughout the safari. Come hell or high water, that professional hunter is doing everything he possibly can for you to be comfortable, to have an incredible experience. Sometimes going completely out of his way, staying up late at night with you, making sure that his paperwork is 100%. Really just going the extra mile to make sure that you are well looked after. So, number one is professional hunter. Number two, trackers. These guys are the unsung heroes of any safari industry. The trackers, they graft hard, they work extremely hard after hours. Sometimes you don't even see the work ethic that goes in, from salting skins to prepping vehicles to tagging systems to making sure that the meat is clean so the meat can be reused. Just some of the most unforeseen things that you can think about, these guys are the ones that are normally doing it. Lodge staff, camp staff, so all the guys that are cleaning your bedding, doing all your washing, obviously cooking, feeding, serving you at the bar, basic housekeeping, kitchen staff, chefs, general camp workers, even the guys from cutting the grass. I think keeping the lodge generally neat and tidy is always just a nice tribute to that. And so that is basically it. Now, on a side note, I do want to mention a couple of things. So first thing, we'll get into the figures on what everyone should be earning. The first thing I want you guys to bear in mind is that, generally speaking, depending on the species you are hunting, there might be some species that you hunt off property on another property. So bear in mind that you'll have to take tips according for the guide. Generally, farmers leave another tracker at the gate that the professional hunter will have to pick up, so that he can go along with you, just to either show you around the place or to make sure that everything is done correctly the way the farmer would like. It's just out of respect. I think it's a great way, but these guys are going to work just as hard as what your trackers are on the back of the truck. So it's always nice to understand. Take a little bit of extra cash with you, because leaving those guys a tip at the end of the day is kind of mandatory. Not only does it put you in a good light with the professional hunter and the team, but it also puts the professional hunter and the team in a good light with the farmer and the boy that went around, or the tracker, the staff member that went around with you for the day. It's incredibly important to understand that, because one hand washes the other type theory. Because those guys, next time that professional hunter comes on site, it might not be with you as a client, but he will be welcomed with open arms, because that tracker now will know that, okay, he is going to get rewarded for all the effort he puts in today. So bear that in mind. That's very, very important. And then some things that don't always happen, but out of all the lodges and the safari outfits that I've hunted for, they generally do all the picking up at the airport. So it's not your professional hunter. So the guys who are transporting you, if it is not your professional hunter, just add a bit of extra bucks onto that for that. So yeah, that was just a bit of a side note. So getting into the financial side of things and what it really means to tip. So guys, one thing we need to understand, again, tipping is not mandatory. You don't have to tip somebody, but like I said, it is always greatly appreciated. And trust me when I say this, a lot of professional hunters struggle, and I've seen it in the past, but a lot of professional hunters struggle to show a lot of appreciation physically. So through facial expressions, through any of that sort of stuff, they really do struggle. But I just want to, for the record, I just want to put it out there that I know for a fact that a good majority of professional hunters no matter what the tip size, they're extremely grateful for what is left behind. I can say that without a doubt. And likewise for the skinners. Lodge staff, there's always going to be bickering and butting heads here and there because it's a pooled system. But for the majority of it, everyone is extremely grateful. So how I've worked it out, and this has always been a good friend of mine, Richard Bridger. He's an incredible professional hunter. He's a great guy. I get on well with him a lot, and often I phone him for a lot of advice. He always just said to me, he said, when they do ask you the awkward question, just put it on a sliding scale. Put it on a sliding scale, let them decide for themselves. And I think that is testament to the professional hunter he is. So I've categorized the professional hunter as a basic professional hunter. Then I've got professional hunter, dangerous game, trackers. There is skinners here because I know there are a couple of lodge staff that do only just skin, and the trackers stay behind, especially on a very high volumed game farm. Lodge and camp staff, that's a pooled system, I just wanted to mention. And then the guys we've just recently mentioned, the guy for the day trip and stuff like that. So I've put things onto a sliding scale, and you might say, oh, well, I haven't given you a figure. I haven't, because I think what is always nice to have is that if this guy has gone over and above and you do give more than what is in the sliding bracket, that professional hunter will walk away knowing, shit, he's done a good job. So professional hunter, basic professional hunter, $100 to $120 per day. Professional hunter with a dangerous game, I've got here $120 to $180 per day. Danger pay. Trackers, generally speaking, between $20 and $50 per day. Skinners, $10 to $20 per day. Lodge and camp staff on a pooled system, $10 to $30 per day. Now, they will put that into a pool system, is they will bundle that up together, and they would split it at the end of the safari, normally equally, or there might be hierarchies that it will break down into. But 9 times out of 10, that's not your issue. That is up to the lodge staff to make sure that it gets broken down correctly. Exterior trackers, I need to word that better, not exterior. Off property, here we go. Off property trackers or skinners or guys that just drive around with you. They might not even know how to track an animal. They might not even know how to skin an animal, but they have to be there with you. They'll guide you through all the gates and stuff, and generally speaking, they do know what sort of species are on the property. They might not know if it's a good size or not, but they'll be able to take you into the right directions. With them, it's $5 to $20 per day. I've given them a little bit of more of a sliding scale because I know it does really differ. Like I mentioned before, they might not even know what a good size or what a trophy animal is. So just bear that in mind. So some of the important notes to mention, what I've just called out here, is that these are averages and not expectations. The quality of service really does matter. If you feel like these guys deserve more, by all means, guys, please. And if you feel like they deserve less, then so be it. But one thing you need to remember is a good, honest tip brings out the best in a professional hunter. I want to say that again. A good, honest tip brings out the best in a professional hunter. If a professional hunter is well looked after in a tip, you will get the best you possibly can out of him. And he would know he's done his work. And that's going to turn that professional hunter into a really good, moral and ethically great professional hunter for the future. I hope if he doesn't receive that, we call it a golden handshake. If he doesn't get anything, or if he gets less than what he expected, that he wouldn't take it too personally, but understand that there's a lot of work that he would need to do to better the quality of service he has delivered on. One thing I also need to just make you guys understand is that this is for one-on-ones. For 2-on-1s, 3-on-1s, it gets a little bit more tricky and a little bit more in depth. So you guys just need to understand that. But generally speaking, if you are doing a 2 or 3 on 1, that you could use that sliding scale depending on the workload that they go. They might go up a little bit here or there, but for the greater part of it, it's a great base to start off with. Okay. One of the questions I always get asked about tipping. When is the best time to tip? Majority of the tipping happens at the end of the safari, unless the 2 guys that I mentioned, the guys that are transporting you from to and from the airport, and then the guys that are assisting you for the day on another property. So majority of the tipping will get done at the end of the end of the trip. Okay. Communicate. So communicate with your professional hunter. When is the best time to receive these tips? Who is meant to receive these tips? And especially when it comes to the pool tips, the lodge staff tips, make sure that you communicate the figures with whoever is in charge of that. I've seen it before where some lodges actually have a headman. Normally it's the head chef, and he's in charge of receiving those tips, because it's always nice. I think there's nothing more than shows great respect from a hunter to hand a tip over to the person. So take your tip and give it to the tracker, give it to the professional hunter. Don't do it via unless circumstances allow for it. You know, you might not be there, you might be spending a couple of days off property, whatever it is. Ask your professional hunter what is customary, what is, because you also don't want to disrespect your PH or your outfitter. And then also ask what is a fair way to distribute the tips. If you feel that your $20 to $30 per day for your skinners and trackers is a little bit steep, and you would rather like to split that tip equally between the 2 of them, well then so be it. Chat to your professional hunter. He'll guide you along the way. I know I said I'm trying to eliminate the awkward conversation, but sometimes you just have to stick your neck out and make sure that you're doing the right thing, because guys, like I said, it shouldn't be a massive thing, but for a lot of us it is huge to receive those tips at the end of the safari. Okay, cash, currency, and particular tips. In majority of the areas, cash is still king. People love to receive cash. We currently, as we speak, and I don't want to say too much, are developing a system where professional hunters, trackers, would be afforded the opportunity to be paid directly. Can't give too much out, but pay directly into their bank account, their tips, via certain channels. But cash right now is still king. People love to exchange currencies throughout, and they actually use it as a bit of like a trade bartering system between one another. But also they kind of like play the stock markets kind of thing. They watch when the rand dollar goes up, and then you see a bunch of them at the end of the month cashing all their dollars and stuff. They head into town. So yeah, currency wise, if you're not a US citizen, any currency is accepted at all our banks, so that's not an issue. Just we have had issues with the US dollar notes that have pink markings on them, Koki markings. So guys, please just check that out. Our banks don't accept. I think they test it with a pink marker. I'm not 100% sure where that pink comes from, but or could it be in a blue marker and then it turns pink, the ink turns pink or something like that. So just bear in mind that any notes with that pink stuff on is extremely difficult for us to exchange. Sometimes we have to give it back to the outfitters for them to exchange it for us when they go over to the marketing shows and stuff. So keep a eye out for that. Also, old notes have become extremely difficult for the banks to accept. They don't pass through the screening process to see whether it's fake or not. I would highly recommend that this is why, again, communication with outfitters and professional hunters is so important. Is figure out who's going to be part of your team for the next safari. Bring out those sort of envelopes and kind of stack the cash in those envelopes even before you get there. That way, if you need to add, everything is sorted out. It's kind of neatly packed away. I had a client do this very thing where he used to arrive on safari and he had a big envelope for all his animals, and that used to go straight into the safe, and then in the other safe used to go all the tips. So you could see it was PH Delav, Tracker, Courtman and Jeff, and then Lodge staff, and there were a couple of other envelopes, and every now and then he would add more and swap out and stuff, but that went into the safe, so he knew he was sorted. He knew he didn't have to stress about it too much. So yeah, and then last but not least, just a little bit of advice: don't wait till the very last morning or before you leave for the airport or something to hand out tips. 10 to 1 the night before, or if you are leaving fairly early in the morning, those trackers are already either gone home, they've already gone, or they're sorting out your skins, they're loading onto the taxidermy pickup, or whatever the case may be. I've seen it happen before where clients and trackers don't get to see each other. So generally speaking, the PH will be there to see you off. But yeah, just keep that in mind. Okay, just some of the common mistakes that I've seen in the past. Clients tend to forget the trackers. They tend to forget the cam staff. They tend to forget the exterior tracker that on another property. Bad assumptions from the professional hunter side is that they always believe that if they shoot, some guys believe that if you as a client shoot more animals, their tip gets less. So that needs to be communicated pretty strictly before. If you feel like that's necessary, I don't ever care about that, because I want the client to leave happy. Don't ever assume that the tip is included in any safari. It is not. It's not a mistake, but leaving a tip at the end of the safari on the bill is not frowned upon, but I would suggest you either take a photo of what you've left behind for the professional hunter, skinner, or whoever it is, and communicate that with the professional hunter. Like I said earlier in this podcast, that a lot of professional hunters have been done up because of that very scenario, and not a lot of professional hunters have access to those bills or the invoicing or any of that sort of stuff. So just make sure that is communicated. So not so much of a mistake, but more of just a suggestion when going out. I'm not saying that all outfitters are crooked or anything like that. I just have heard horrific stories. Never happened to me, touch wood. It's never happened to me. So I don't know, but I do know of a lot of cases from prominent outfitters in the industry where it has made a massive amount of impact. And on top of that, a lot of the outfitters tend to take the commission that the banks charge through that card machine off of the tip, which is always a lot less. So yeah. Gratitude beyond money. A sincere thank you goes an extremely long way. I've seen it in the past where guys normally get extremely personal, leave a lot of good stuff behind, from knives to caps to jackets to stuff we can't get over this side, and they leave it behind for their professional hunter, for their tracker, boots, backpacks. I've seen it all, and it goes a long way, guys. Those small gestures really mean something to the guys that have been part of your safari, because you guys have built a relationship around that. They feel grateful. They felt like their hard work has definitely meant something in the greater scheme of things. If you don't know how to put your safari into words to your professional hunter, or if you just feel like two grown men, it might just get a little bit awkward. Put it on a note, leave it behind. I've seen that happen. It's happened to me once or twice, which is very, very special. But the beauty of it with social media, normally when the guys get to the airport, they send you this long ass message, and it's just really, it's such a good feeling to be able to read those messages and realize what a great time these guys actually had out here. Leaving a tip is not the only respectful manner you guys can act in, but being respectful around camp is also an important aspect to this whole thing. Remembering guys' names, making an effort to have conversation with them really goes a long way. I've seen it with bartenders in the past where clients will go out of their way to make these guys feel so welcome, so part of the team, that these bartenders will remember you for the rest of their life. And they continuously talk about those sort of clients at camp all the time. So leaving lasting impressions goes a very, very long way. So what are my final thoughts? Well, tipping has become an ethical part of the hunting tourism, whether we like it or not. It's now embedded into the culture, it's embedded into who we are as individuals, and of course a lot of households use it to budget. It doesn't reflect wealth, it reflects character, and that I think is very important to understand. Leaving behind a good tip because you can is not the same impact of leaving behind a good tip because those guys deserved it. So remember that. When tipping is done right, it's got this incredible ability to strengthen the industry as a whole, and people tend to look after the industry a lot more and a lot longer and a lot harder than done badly. So just bear that in mind. I know I said at the start of the podcast that I wanted to avoid those awkward conversations, but there are going to be points where you're going to have to ask questions. So ask the questions. Plan ahead. Make sure that you understand where everyone is on the same page. And yeah, like I said, don't take it too personally if the PH hasn't shown enough gratitude, because he really is. He's blooming inside. So yeah. So just a little closing quote I thought I would leave with you guys. If you're willing to spend thousands on a safari, be willing to recognize the people who made it all possible. And I think that is such a beautifully important point we need to take into consideration time and time again. Majority of the people in this industry work their absolute knackers off to make sure that you can come out and have the best possible safari you can. Yeah, tipping. One of the most awkward but necessary conversations to have at any safari. And yeah, I hope this helped, guys. From a professional hunter standpoint, guys, I hope you will be able to pass this on to your clients that are having difficulties understanding the tipping scenario, and to the clients coming out, the friendships that you guys are going to be building and the safaris you're going to be embarking on. I hope this helps you so much with choosing the correct way of showing your appreciation to the guys that are behind you every step of the way, making sure that you have an incredible safari going forward. That's it from me. If you are going to the shows, guys, Atlanta looks like it's absolutely buzzing. Go and enjoy it. I'm so gutted I'm not there. Child losers aside, but anyway, we'll be out there next year. And as always, if you are, happy hunting. Until then, stay safe, stay blessed, and stay humble. We'll catch up with you guys soon.